In this video on combining like terms, we're going to make things a little bit more complicated by adding parentheses, exponents, and some more negative numbers. But before doing that, I want to talk about this concept of like terms, especially as it applies to exponents. So I have on the screen 4 names that all involve the letters J and N. We have Jane and June and Jen and Jan. And we would all recognize those as being different names because they have different combinations of letters. Some of the same letters, a few different letters. Well, identifying like terms is the same. Here are some like terms that all involve the letters X and Y. We have X squared Y. We have X squared Y to the third power, X times Y to the third power, and just X times Y. We want to recognize these as all being different combinations, just like these different names. We can only combine the ones that have the same combination of variable letters and exponents. So with that, let's move on to a few examples to prepare you for these 10 questions that we have coming up. So in the first one, the first problem here, all we've done is introduce parentheses. So we have X times Y plus 3 times X plus, in parentheses, 10 times XY plus 4 times X. We can just drop those parentheses. You don't have to write it, but it might help you to write it to remember that the parentheses aren't really being that helpful. So I'm just going to rewrite it to communicate that. Then we want to identify our like terms. We have an XY term here and an XY term here. So this is plus 1XY and this is plus 10XY. If you want to take a little bit of a shortcut, you could immediately combine those like terms. Now that you've identified them, 1 plus 10 would be 11XY. Then we move on to our next like term. We have 3x plus 3x. We have plus 4x. 3 plus 4 is plus 7x. We have 7 x's. We have 11 xy's. And we're done with that problem. So the primary takeaway from this problem is that we can ignore these parentheses when this is addition. We'll talk about subtraction in the next video. So let me erase those drawings so that we can move on to the next problem. I'm going to also change my color to blue. All right, so what's being introduced in problem number 2 is now we have these nasty exponents. But we don't have to let those bother us. We just have to remember we're looking for the same combination of the variable letters and the exponents in order to combine them. So I'm going to try to ignore these parentheses. I'm not going to rewrite this problem. And I'm going to recognize that a squared b squared is the same as this term over here. We have 1a squared b squared, and we have 2a squared b squareds. Let's continue. Here's an ab. Do we have another ab? We sure do. So this is plus 3ab. This is plus 7ab. So I'm going to use that technique where I kind of draw lines to connect these. That helps me keep track of it. 1a squared b squared plus 2a squared b squareds gives me a total of 3a squared b squareds. And then we can combine this other set of like terms. 3ab's and 7ab's. And they're all positive, so that is plus 10 ABs. And we're done with that problem. Let's move on to number 3. What's happening here? We've got parentheses again. We've got exponents, but we've also got some negative numbers here in these parentheses. We don't have to allow those to bother us. Once again, we can think in terms of ignoring. Just going to try to cross out these parentheses. But when we do so, You might want to rewrite it when there's negatives involved because it might make it clearer what's going on. 8x squared y plus the first part we just have to rewrite. When we get to this next part, this might be confusing. But remember that when we add a negative number, it's like subtracting. So we can just write this as 4x squared y. And this next one, we can just write as minus 4. Because we're adding, it isn't going to do anything to the sign of these two terms. So notice that they're exactly the same. Minus 4x squared y, minus 4x. Now this looks a lot easier to manage. Let's identify our like terms. We have 8x squared y and minus 4x squared y. We have to pay very close attention to those negatives. Our other like term, 7x, that matches up with minus 4x. Notice that I'm including that minus sign in my term. It might help sometimes if you were to regroup these, meaning writing them in an order where it might make more sense to you. Let's do that in this case. 8x squared y minus 4x squared y. I'm grouping those x squared y terms together. Then I'll group the other ones. 7x minus 4x. This might make it a little bit clearer what's going on here. Now we can combine these two. 8 minus 4 leaves us with 4x squared y. So we're just doing subtraction there. And here we have 7 minus 4. We are left with 3 x's. 4x squared y plus 3x. Right, let me clear off those drawings and we'll move on to what may be the hardest problem in this list, but it doesn't have to be a hard problem. What's different about this one is that we may end up with negative numbers in our answer. That hasn't happened yet. But other than that, it's the same as the previous problem. So let's rewrite this without the parentheses. 3a squared b plus 3b. And once again, adding a negative is just subtracting a squared b. And this negative 7b or minus 7b, we can just rewrite that. Identifying our like terms, a squared b, 3a squared b, and minus 6a squared b. 3b and minus 7b. I'm going to do that regrouping thing again. I'm going to change my color up here and group the a squared b's together. 3a squared b minus 6a squared b. I grouped the a squared b's together. Now let me group the b's together. Plus 3b minus 7b. We group these together, we combine these two. But in this case, we have 3 minus 6. So the difference in this problem is that we actually end up with a negative number of a squared b's, which is okay, that happens. And likewise here, we have 3b minus 7b. We're going to end up with a negative number of b's. 3 minus 7 is 4, minus 4, minus 4b. That's the answer to that question. Hopefully that prepares you to handle these 10 questions that are coming up. Once again, if you don't do as well as you like, watch this video again and then redo those 10 questions. You should be looking for about 80% correct. It's easy to make mistakes on these kind of problems. So slow down and be careful. Good luck.